When I see polls on the economy, I should have 150%, not 100%.
Well, yeah.
Because we have the greatest. This is the golden age of America. What's being built now in this country has never, ever been built.
And my warning to my fellow Republicans, Will, would be if we don't get this right, don't blame young people for being sympathetic to socialism. We've got to blame ourselves.
The only thing that makes it interesting to me is I think J.D. Vance is a little bit like socialist curious. Different.
You put your finger on it, though. He's feathering his own nest in a way that any White House should put the kibosh on pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I found myself nodding along a little bit with him, and then I had to remind myself, no, they run the White House, the Senate, the House. It is their economy, and they have to fix it.
He is a guy now that is, working for an administration that now has stakes in 30 private companies. How conservative is that from the conservatism that I knew?
But I think Democrats have got to be willing to be more public-facing in terms of defending their moderate candidates. To me, it appears that they're afraid of the DSA folks, and the way I look at it, looking at the numbers, they're not as strong as we presume they are.
But the Israel-Gaza litmus test, in the same way when you asked every single candidate, do you believe Black Lives Matter? Do you believe that we should defund the police? In the same way, do you believe that Israel has a right to exist?
Guys, last night on Abby Phillip Show, MAGA pundits got absolutely cornered trying to defend Trump's golden age talking point. Progressives on that panel fact-checked these MAGA pundits so hard that they had nothing left to say. Let me play some clips from the show. I'll break it down as we go.
Tonight, the golden age or a work in progress. President Trump and his own vice president appear to disagree about the strength of the economy. In a new interview today, J.D. Vance suggested the state of the economy is at least partly responsible for the rise of socialism on the left. But that's very different than what Donald Trump has said recently.
When I see polls on the economy, I should have 150%, not 100%.
Well, yeah.
Because we have the greatest. This is the golden age of America. What's being built now in this country has never, ever been built. And we are literally in the golden age of America.
Now, here is what J.D. Vance said earlier today.
Our response to that can't be just to ignore the economic concerns that I think are feeding this rising interest in socialism. We want people to be able to afford the good things about this wonderful country that we all live in. And my warning to my fellow Republicans, Will, would be if we don't get this right, don't blame young people for being sympathetic to socialism. We've got to blame ourselves. Rebuilding our industrial base, rebuilding the heartland, making our streets safer, making it possible for young people to afford to buy a home. This is how you stop socialism. You don't stop socialism by throwing slogans at people about the free market. As much as I love the free market, you stop socialism by making people's lives better.
Alyssa Farrell-Griffin, we turn to you.
All right. First style, then substance. This is niche for me, but I worked for Mike Pence when he was vice president. I'm still stunned by how often J.D. Vance contradicts and is on a different messaging sheet than the president. That's just something we would have heard from the West Wing on. But J.D. Vance is also absolutely right, calling affordability a hoax, saying that the economy is on fire, we're the hottest country in the world. That's not how anyone feels right now. And ahead of the midterms, you need Republicans acknowledging the pain. He's also right that when you see this rise of interest in socialism with young people, it is because they feel economically displaced. And simply telling them, well, it's because of your $20 burrito or the avocado toast that you bought, that does not answer the question. The only thing that makes it interesting to me is I think J.D. Vance is a little bit like socialist curious. I just finished reading his book, and he has some of his economic policies are not traditional free market economic policies. If you compare him, it's vastly different.
You put your finger on it, though. He's feathering his own nest in a way that any White House should put the kibosh on pretty quickly. He's called himself a post-liberal. He believes in strong, effective government intervention into the private sector, very unconservative. He's made no bones about this. This is his political project he's talking up here. And I thought this White House was we elected a bunch of fighters, right? They're fighters. They're going to fight against left-wing narratives. What is that?
Right.
Giving a whole lot of credence to the notion that socialism, which has failed 100% of the time it's tried, is a valid response to economic hardship. How dare you give up?
Real quick, back to Alyssa. Would you expect that J.D. Vance might get a talking to for contradicting the message like that?
I honestly have been stunned because I've seen it quite a few times, and they seem to let him have a much longer leash than they did in the first term. And I don't know if it's because it's the Rubio versus Vance stakes and they're letting it play out. but he does undermine the White House's messaging.
Yeah, I mean, I found myself nodding along a little bit with him. And then I have to remind myself, no, they run the White House, the Senate, the House. It is their economy, and they have to fix it. But it is in such a contrast. I think back to President Trump when he wouldn't sign Tim Scott and Elizabeth Warren's housing bill. And I thought, wow, here is the issue that you could win young people on. I mean, you have a whole generation that it feels like woke up and read Karl Marx and said, okay, this is what I believe. And if you want to bring people back to capitalism, you have to make capitalism feel like it is working for them.
Michael, as an unidentifiable political individual, what do you make of the rise of the Democratic Socialists?
Do we have, how long do we have? We have 2 or 3 hours?
33 seconds.
Well, I will say one thing is that I live in New York City, and when J.D. Vance says, people who are down on their luck are the people that support socialism, not here, my friend. It's Park Slope. It's people that have degrees in Danish puppet theater who live in Park Slope. Those are the people who support socialism here. Look, I get where he's going. I'm not surprised by it. If you follow the trajectory of J.D. Vance's very odd ideological path from being a neocon working for David Frum at one point to where he is now, I mean, he is a guy who wrote for Commentary magazine at one point. He is a guy now that is, working for an administration that now has stakes in 30 private companies.
Guys, it is quite interesting to see how Trump loves this line. We are living in the golden age. He keeps repeating it everywhere. He's basically trying to make it a brand slogan at this point. But here's the problem. Nobody outside his political rallies is buying this rant. I mean, look at the numbers. His approval rating on the economy is now in the mid-30s. His approval on cost of living is even worse, down in the 20s. Wages aren't keeping up with inflation. The Fed can't even cut rates because prices are still very high. So honestly, good luck buying a house anytime soon. But you know what? There's one place in Washington that actually has a golden age right now. The White House. The one Trump's currently living in. Outside that place, a completely different and ugly picture. Now, here's the thing that grabbed MAGA's attention. Trump's own Vice President J.D. Vance is quietly distancing himself from that golden age rant. Vance went on Fox and admitted that we can't blame young people for turning to democratic socialism. It's our own fault. Yes, you heard that right. Vance admitted that Republicans' economic policies are pushing young Americans toward the left. He continued talking about youngsters who are doing everything that they're supposed to do. They went to college, got a job, and still they can't afford the expenses to survive. Vance called that feeling real. And you know what? He's not wrong about that part. But here's the catch, guys. Vance still wants credit, even though his own party is the one that failed. He's making excuses. These things take time, while defending the very policies causing the pain right now. And it's not just progressives calling this out. Even Alyssa Farah Griffin, a former Trump White House staffer, said Vance is starting to sound socialist curious. Boom! There is a reality check. Many MAGA supporters are now accepting the reality that the cost of living is going up, and it's hard for everyday Americans to make ends meet. Here's another harsh reality. Americans are carrying over $1 trillion in credit card debt right now, and more people are falling behind on payments than at any point since the 2008 crash. More than half of the cardholders can't pay their balance off every month. Millions of Americans can only afford the minimum. 1 in every 3 Americans is now putting groceries on a credit card. Yes, that's right. Not vacations, groceries. And for Gen Z, it's even worse. Nearly half are leaning on buy now, pay later just to cover their basic needs. And tariffs make the situation even worse. Clothing, gas, housing, healthcare, utilities, all pushed up. Regular American families are getting bigger bills, not relief. And that's absolutely ridiculous. These MAGA pundits still have the audacity to sit there and defend Trump and his cronies while people can't even afford groceries. And still this clown in the Oval Office and his administration are pretending that they're doing very well.
How conservative is that from the conservatism that I knew? I don't identify as a conservative. I'm much more libertarian. And this is a thing that offends libertarians because they're already doing it, and it's not good.
Sherm, all this said, the rise of the Democratic Socialists is sort of a hanging curveball for your side, right? I mean, there is a lot of political hay to be made here.
Yeah, there is, but I will not cede any ground to the socialists. I think you're right. It's a bunch of highly educated whites. It's a lot of highly educated white students. The majority of Americans are simply saying, we want the same bargain that our parents and our grandparents made that worked for them to work for us. They're not giving up on capitalism. They're not giving up on the idea of the free market. They may not be reading Hayek, but they still believe the system works. I think we as Republicans just have to do a little bit more to make sure that that translates into the tangible. But I am not going to see ground to socialists that half of America is buying this crap. I will not believe
One thing to add to this is the DSA understands this too. What happens when they win a primary and it's not New York? When you win the primary, you win the election here. Yeah. When it's somewhere else, what do they start backing off from? Yeah. Hating Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
In those types of things that are codified into the DSA's platform, they're running away from now because they understand that people don't like this.
So, Alyssa, to that point, Yemisi, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying that's why I don't lean so much into the DSA's taking over the Democratic Party, because I think, okay, well, the DSA has to win in competitive places to be this legitimate faction that is like a threat or in some sense to the Democratic Party.
I'm not sure the DSA knows that, though, if you listen to them. They have a few lessons in politics. But I think the rise of the DSA, some of this is, yes, economic in nature. I think a lot of it is overeducated, younger, largely white voters who, frankly, are more motivated by cultural issues, by issues like Gaza, and they're kind of just putting all of their energy behind a progressive cause. But you don't see most of these candidates prioritizing, first and foremost, affordability and bringing down the cost of living. It is much more these third-rail issues.
So let me ask the political strategists at the table. It's a fact that all Democratic candidates, no matter where you are, DSA, moderate, are going to be painted with a broad brush, right? They're going to be presented with those most extreme statements: abolish Thanksgiving, abolish the U.S. Senate. If you all, and you guys can play Democratic strategists for a second, how should one respond to that?
How should one respond to the notion that, listen, I'm not a Democratic socialist, so that's probably...
If you got hired to advise a Democratic candidate, a moderate Democratic candidate, you knew he or she was going to get attacked with the most extreme statements of the DSA.
The most effective strategy that was ever devised to do this is now anathema to the Democratic Party, and that's the Sister Soldier moment. You can't do that
Can you just explain that, just so it goes back a little bit?
It goes back to 92, 93.
Clinton,
during the first campaign of Bill Clinton, and he was confronted with a lot of radical activism from African Americans, and especially Jesse Jackson. And he had this target of opportunity, which was this rapper, Sister Soldier, who had made a lot of incendiary comments about white people. And so Bill Clinton, standing with Jesse Jackson right next to him at this conference, denounced this woman. And in doing so, symbolically threw that side, threw that millstone off the side of the Democratic Party ship. You can't do that anymore because of intersectionality. Intersectionality prescribes the notion that all causes are the same cause, that all activists are within the same universe of activism, and to get rid of one is to offend all and to sacrifice all. And so we don't have Sister Soldier moments anymore. And that construct is impossible to navigate. It is really foolish, unnecessary, and should be brought back.
There are some candidates out there.
Guys, Trump came into power because he made commitments to people that he would lower the cost of living. He would not start any new wars, but then he broke all of those promises. And he and his family are getting richer with crypto ventures, mineral deals, and defense contracts. And ordinary Americans are struggling to live even a normal life. Things didn't stop there. Then this war of choice against Iran came up. Trump started that war himself without getting Congress's approval. Let me be clear here. Nobody attacked us first. Literally nobody. The intelligence and security agencies told Trump there was no imminent threat from Iran, but this president started this war anyway, without thinking about the consequences, and Iran retaliated by disrupting the Strait of Hormuz, which carries 20% of the world's oil supply, sending prices up almost immediately. The Pentagon admitted in closed-door testimony that they spent $11 billion in the first 6 days of the war alone. Now, it's been almost 6 months, and we are nowhere close to winning it. Tens of billions of taxpayer dollars have already been thrown into this war, and now the Trump administration is asking for a staggering $87 billion more to continue it. That is absolutely insane. Huge amounts of taxpayer money spent on a war nobody wants, and reportedly, Iranian retaliation has already destroyed several U.S.-linked bases in the Gulf, causing tens of billions of dollars in damage more. So now you know why young people and the elderly alike are distancing themselves from this MAGA leader. Democratic socialist candidates are actually winning primaries in different states across the country. That is a trend J.D. Vance himself is reacting to. After years of branding themselves as the party of prosperity, they're now terrified they've failed to deliver. And you know what? Republicans know it in their hearts. Many of them are showing their frustration over Trump's poor economic policies and wrong priorities. So stack all this up, and you'll find out why there is a sudden socialist surge everyone's panicking about. The vice president himself is conceding that the party's own poor record is driving people left. Right now, Trump is getting hit from every direction, his administration is looking for a face-saving exit from the conflict with Iran, which seems very hard at the moment. Iran has shown a level of resilience nobody predicted. Back home, midterms are less than 3 months away, and his party is underwater because they completely failed to make Americans' lives better. Republicans are panicking because they know if things keep going the way they are, chances are high they'll lose control of the Senate, and that is a nightmare for the Trump administration. They're trying to flip the narrative, but Americans are watching closely, and they're not happy at all with the actions of this brainless clown in the White House. At the end of the day, the numbers don't lie, even when the talking points do. And right now, more Americans than ever are choosing to believe the numbers.
I keep an eye on Crowley, who no one was expecting to win. And you see some of his interviews now. I'm like, you guys were hiding one of your best candidates under a rock and almost nominating a lunatic there. But he's very eloquently answered this question. He's not going to entertain the Hassan Pikers of the world. He's not going to appear with people who have said some of the most outrageous things that you can say in politics. And he's going to stand by what he believes in. And like competent candidates.
He's also a very progressive candidate.
Competent candidates should be able to stand on their own 2 feet and not have to cater to all these different
but I think Democrats have got to be willing to be more public facing in terms of defending their moderate candidates. To me, it appears that they're afraid of the DSA folks, and the way I look at it, looking at the numbers, they're not as strong as we presume they are.
Michael, you are a New York resident. I don't know if you're in AOC's district, if you live in there, but you're close. No. What do you make of the fact that she has already begun the distancing process, right? Yesterday, sort of making a joke about woke one.
Didn't go to bat for Francesca Hong.
Nor did Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders. What do you make of that?
Bernie Sanders. I mean, look, the whole thing when she goes on the ABC show this week with Jonathan Karl, it says, well, woke 1.0 was a bit much. You think it was? Okay, what particularly? Well, she wasn't asked that follow-up question. She should have been. But why is she saying that? Because she was involved in woke 1.0. And I love that it's like software now. It got an update to 2.0.
Well, that's the obvious
now we don't want to defund the police. But no one is asking the follow-up questions. Okay, do you believe in defunding the police, abolishing the Senate, abolishing Thanksgiving, all these absurdities? But she is running away from that for a reason, because she has higher aspirations. Anybody that has higher aspirations has to walk away from this stuff. What does that tell you about the American electorate? Something that's a bit reassuring, I have to say.
But can I say real quick, it's very interesting that AOC is pivoting away from woke one, while Kamala Harris, also likely a contender, is pivoting right back to 2020 Kamala Harris. Like, make that make sense to me, and it shows AOC, I mean, it'd be a gift to
packing the Supreme Court.
Correct. It'd be a gift to Republicans if AOC was the nominee, but she is showing a much more nuanced approach.
But what's changed about her actual views in woke 2.0?
Right. No,
it's a great question. Yeah. It's a great question. She's going to be asked that.
And I would say that woke 2.0 now is the Israel-Gaza litmus test. In the same way when you asked every single candidate, do you believe Black Lives Matter? Do you believe that we should defund the police? In the same way, do you believe that Israel has a right to exist? Is a question that everyone's getting asked.
All right. That's it for today, guys. What do you think about Trump's golden age economy? You think he's telling the truth? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.